This is going to be a super fun episode for probably what might be a pretty hot summer day for you. But before we get started, I want to give you a little bit of a heads up and just some things that we're looking at on the horizon here at Little by Little Homeschool. So I want you to tuck in the back of your mind and not to miss out on it. But Thursday, I have an amazing interview. You are not going to want to miss it. I just wanted to continue to learn from her, but I was like, all right, we eventually have to end the episode, but it's so good. So don't miss that on Thursday. And then next week, we're going to do a back to school series. And guess what? I'm going to throw in an extra episode for you, as well as a special bundle sale, which is something that I've never done before. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. So don't miss Thursday in this great interview. And then next week for the back to school, which will have 3 episodes. But right now, let's dive into 15 benefits of homeschooling that you may not realize. And we're going to wrap this all up in 15 minutes.
Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Lee Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course, because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening.
We're going to keep today's episode quick and moving along so that you can get back to your summer activity, whatever that is. Maybe that is watching the kids play in the sprinkler, sitting by a pool, going on a day outing, or just hanging out inside and enjoying the air conditioning. For these 15 things that I'm going to mention today, these 15 benefits, I could probably speak about each of these for an entire episode, which maybe I will do at some point. And some of these I may have spoken about in depth already. But I went into homeschooling with basically just the prompting of God saying, you should do this for your family. And I had a few ideas of why. There were things that I was just kind of annoyed with. There were things that I was just like, maybe that's not so great. But I didn't have much more than just a couple. And I didn't really know what we could really get out of homeschooling. And I don't think a lot of families really do, unless you have other homeschooling families that you know well. But maybe it's also the fact that now there's social media. So it is easier to know the benefits. Back in the day, we used to just kind of be tucked away in our homes and not really know anybody else and not have a lot of people to talk to about these things. But after graduating 2 kids, and I've got a 3rd kid that is close to getting to graduation, I have learned that homeschooling is so much more than academics, which I promise we're going to get to the nitty-gritty of academics next week for the Back to School series. But today, let's just do a big overall picture because maybe you are going into your first year of homeschooling and wondering, is this really going to be worth it? And you're super focused on the academics and you have no idea what else to expect, what else you can get out of it. Or possibly you might be going into a year now and you're thinking to yourself, I know I should be excited, but I'm a little scared. I'm a little weary. I'm a little tired, and I'm not quite sure if it really was worth all my time and my effort emotionally, physically, and spiritually to do this. I'm hoping that today's episode is what is you need to boost you up and to get you started on your homeschool year, which we'll be starting here soon. Can you even believe it? The summer is flying by. Okay, let's get into these 15 benefits. And I should add that these are in no particular order. I basically just brainstormed and brain dumped, and in whatever order they came out is what I wrote them in. And again, I could probably speak about all of these individually for a very long time, but I'm just going to add a little bit to it because I promised you 15 minutes and I'm going to stick to it. Number 1 is that homeschooling gives freedom for your family. This was one of the reasons I wanted to homeschool. I was tired of being bogged down and my life being dictated by someone else's schedule. And that someone else was the public school, basically the state government or the school district, kind of the same sort of thing. But having the freedom for your family, you get to come up with your own routine, your rhythm, your schedule for the day. You get to decide things when you want to do things. You don't need to work anything around a school schedule. And you get to decide overall, even beyond the schedule, you just have freedom for your family. You get to decide the culture of your family. You get to pursue the family culture, what you want to do. So, just the freedom that you get to have. And that might sound a little bit overwhelming, but I promise, as you get into it more, you'll realize how good it feels and what that really can do for your kids. Number two is the benefit is that your kids don't have to perform for government metrics. In other words, they aren't having to work for certain grades, whether that is a letter grade or a number grade. You don't have report cards. There's none of these metrics that are decided by a board or by quote unquote experts somewhere, education experts, or some type of government branch or government group or anybody that is deciding what level your child needs to be at a certain point. There's none of these metrics. There's no hoops to jump through. There is none of those. If you want to assign grades, you can. If you want to tell your kids your grades that you're assigning, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to either. But your kids don't have to walk out into the world after school feeling like they're being constantly judged and evaluated. Number three, your kids will have time to develop skills. Now, the skill that a 5-year-old is going to be different than the skill of a 15-year-old. And yes, those are skills of learning in the younger years how to hold a pencil, how to write in penmanship, maybe how to build a Lego castle, or how to put together a puzzle or create their own game. And then as they get older, they get to hone in on skills that they really want to pursue. Whether that is something that's in art, or it is something in the sciences, or in math, or something that might just look like it's just a hobby, that they actually end up be really developing their skills and being able to step out into the workforce and providing for themselves and eventually a family because of these skills that they were able to develop because they have the time to develop those skills. They aren't, as in the second benefit, having to jump through hoops and performing for government metrics. They have the time to develop the skills that possibly you want them to develop, and then also the skills that they want to develop. The fourth benefit is that your child can get their sleep. They don't have to get up super early. Now, if you have young children, they might be up super early, but as they get older, they don't have to be up and out at the bus. I know that in the morning, I will open up the curtains and look outside, and I will see the bus driving by at 6 something in the morning, knowing that my kids are still sleeping. Now, no, they're not lazy. It's just that they don't have to get up early for something. We can still get up if we wanted to start at an early time. They could still get up and start at an early time. They don't have to be out of the bus. They don't have to be fully dressed. They don't have to get into a car and drive somewhere. But having that opportunity to be able to sleep, because we know that sleep is so important. It's important for everybody, but really important for kids. And it still is important for teenagers. And they don't have to be up late because they had an activity and then they still had homework to do. And then they were hungry again and they're getting to bed at 11, 12 o'clock at night and then getting up to head out to school by 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm not exaggerating. I have heard from kids that that's what it's like. And so your kids can get the sleep that they need. The fifth benefit is sibling relationships. We are made to think in our culture that siblings don't have to get along, that they won't get along because we just will see in TV shows. And there's just a lot out there that just makes you think that they don't have to get along. But probably the not getting along is because they might not spend a lot of time together. And this doesn't mean that if your kids are in public or private school that they won't get along. I just know for myself, even when I compare my relationship that I had with my brothers and that my kids have with each other, I think that my relationship with my brothers, it might have been better when we were younger because of the time that we would spend together and the time that we were forced to spend together and the time then that you as a parent, when you begin to see issues within the relationship, you actually see that and you can then spend time on that. So sibling relationships can be really strong in homeschool families. The sixth benefit is that you as the parent get to choose the influence upon your children. This is something that is so important. I think that we don't even quite recognize that. We might think also that influence is just maybe the administration or the teachers that are in a school. And you're like, well, I don't really know them. I don't really want them to have influence upon my kids. It's also the influence that other children can have upon them. Now, yes, you can enroll them in certain sports leagues or different events, 4-H, where they will have different influences, but you get to choose that and you get to be a bit more a part of that instead of them being at school for 6, 7 hours and not really knowing the influences, the little conversations, and the little things that are going on. So, as parents, we get to choose the influence upon our children. Number one should be you as the parents. Then we get to pull in people that get to speak into our children. And if there are situations and there are people that you don't want speaking into your children, you get as the homeschooler to say, no, we're not going to do that. Maybe it's a co op and you're not really on board with maybe who the teacher would be. You don't have to take that class. You can decide even not to do the co op. You get to decide who has an influence upon your children. And that might sound really controlling, but I don't see it as that. I see it as protecting them, especially when they are younger. And as they get older, it is okay for them to be exposed to other influences and have those conversations, but they have that foundation. And I have found this tremendously with my kids, being very picky about who is able to speak into their lives. And now, as they are older, they can recognize when those that are speaking into their lives are not people that should be allowed to speak into their life, and they don't really shouldn't really listen and respect what those people are saying and fall for that. Number 7 is that you get to change direction when needed. In a school, if you have, say, a math curriculum and the child just is not getting, the teacher can't say, oh, well, I'm just going to change math curriculum. But you, as the homeschool parent, you get to do that. You can change direction when it comes to your academics and curriculum at any time. You don't even have to finish out a homeschool year with that curriculum if it is not working. You can completely change course as far as styles of homeschooling, or maybe you decide we're not going to do a co op, and partway through your homeschooling career or partway through the homeschool year, you can say, I really think we need to enroll in a co op or we need to do something because we're just feeling like that's what we need to do. But you can change directions whenever you need to. You have that right and that ability in your hands to do so. Number 8 is you can take lots of field trips. And I know that sometimes we're like, oh no, field trips. That's a lot. It can be a lot, but it doesn't have to be a lot. You can do small field trips, and maybe there's some seasons where it doesn't work as well. But going out and actually seeing and doing things makes such an impact. And it doesn't even have to be something that you are studying right then. I remember taking my kids on field trips because I would maybe in a Facebook group or on an email list, and they would announce certain special field trip days at at locations that were close to us. And we might not even have been studying, say it was a historical site. We might not even been studying that time period, but who cares? We went on the field trip because it was a homeschool day and they're like, everybody can get in for $1 or we'll have special things for them to do during the day, and it was during the week. And so taking field trips are some of the greatest memories that my kids and that I have of our homeschooling time. Number 9 is that you can take sick days when it's appropriate. This was one thing that drove me crazy. I would have a child this is when we were in public school, who was not feeling well. And if they were out of school, I don't even remember. It might have been if there was more than 2 days, you had to get a doctor's note. So here I have to pack up this child who really would be best off just sleeping on the couch, just laying on the couch, watching some cartoons, because that is what is going to heal them more than packing them up and packing up the healthy children as well and bringing them all to the doctor's office just for the doctor to say, oh, just get some rest and make sure they stay hydrated. Here's a note. That drove me insane. And it was just like a little thing. I was like, this is ridiculous. So when your child is not feeling well, sometimes there are times when they are really unwell and out of it for a couple of days, and you do zero homeschool. Some days they're just feeling a little under the weather, but you can still do read alouds, or maybe they do some reading, or they're feeling well enough to watch some documentaries and you get some science or history in. But you get to choose when you take sick days and to what degree that is. Number 10, a benefit of homeschooling is your child will receive real socialization. You knew I was going to throw that in here at some point because that is the number one thing people say. Well, you're going to homeschool? How will your child be socialized? Really? What is socialization? I mean, I just can't even stand that word at all, but I use the word because that's what everybody uses and they understand what that means. But your child, your children will know what it's like to interact in the world and to interact with people of all different ages. Unless you guys are staying locked in your basement, you are going to interact with different people. Maybe it's just neighbors. Maybe it's the person working at the grocery store or at Home Depot or at the garden center when you're going to buy plants. When you go on field trips, hello, they get to interact with people, but you get to expose them to real socialization. And real socialization is being able to interact, have a conversation to whatever level and degree is appropriate for that child and their maturity with people of all different ages and all different backgrounds and all different ethnicities and all different stories to their lives. Number 11 is that your kids are going to know how a household functions. When a child is removed from the home for 6, 7 hours during the day, comes home, maybe has a snack, maybe goes to some sports practice, maybe just has homework and then needs a little bit of downtime, has to get to bed early or they're up late because they're in high school and they still have schoolwork and stuff to do, they're not a part of the family. When children are a part of the family and a part of a household day in and day out, they know about chores. And this doesn't mean your kid can't have chores if they're not homeschooled. They definitely can. But there are probably more chores. I found my house to be messier because we were home and living in it every single day. And guess what? They were a part of making the mess. They got to help out. There was also home repairs. Suddenly, maybe in the middle of the day, something might break. And if my husband was around, he would fix it and they would join in and they would learn. They learned how a home functions. They learned that meals did not just suddenly appear on the table. They see me and sometimes are a part of the meal planning, of the shopping. They are then seeing me in the kitchen by maybe 4 o'clock, starting to make dinner. It didn't just appear on the table at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Mom actually had to work and reverse engineer and figure out what time to start working on this. Sometimes they would see me working first thing in the morning on a meal, getting something prepped, but they know how a household functions. That will equip them so well when they get out into the future and they have their own household. Okay, better snap here to it. We're getting close on time. Um, Number 12 is that they will learn how the world works because they're with you 24/7. You'll be out and about, especially when they're young and you can't leave them home. They are then the ones that are going to be with you. They're going to be interacting with those that you interact with, and they're going to know how the world works way before they actually are out and about in it. And this is part of that socialization. 13 is that they will become independent people. They will be autonomous. They won't need constant direction. They won't need someone to tell them what to do. Maybe you have a child that is going to go on to college, and colleges love homeschool kids. Do you know why? Because they have learned how to, like I just said before about the reverse engineering, they've watched you with household stuff. You've taught them this in their academics, and they can figure out, well, I have a paper due on this certain day of the week in a few months or in a month or so in a few weeks, and they can figure out when do they need to actually start working on that. But they don't need the constant direction saying, okay, tonight I need you to read pages 9 to 15 and do this, start working on this project. There isn't this constant direction. There isn't a time where they're constantly being looked over and they know how to just go and do what they need to do. 2 more here to go. Number 14, homeschooling, for the most part, this is not going to be an absolute type of thing, but homeschooling, for the most part, you can avoid bullying. And if there is any type of bullying or any type of influence or anything that's going on that's pulling your kid down, you're probably going to notice it a lot sooner. They aren't going to be away from you for most of the day. Maybe it's a co op. There might be a child there that is not very nice to your child. And you're going to start to notice they come out of that class with their head hanging low. And you might kind of hear some things. And the parent that's teaching that class might actually come and say something to you and be able to work through that, as opposed to having this administration in the middle of that. And I know that I am definitely going over time and I apologize. I tried. I really did try. And number 15 here is that your kids are going to know themselves. They're going to know their gifts, talents, and abilities, and they're going to know a bit about their place in this world and what God is calling them to and feeling confident in that. All right, we're going to wrap it up. I tried really hard. Can you give me an A for effort? Not that we grade around here. But just a quick reminder before we close out, next week we're going to be doing a back to school series here. Lots of tactical tips and everything as you begin your homeschool year. If you would like some more insider information from Little by Little Homeschool, you're going to want to sign up for the newsletter. That link is in the show notes. And I will see you right back here on Thursday.
Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.